releasing the book is a real trip, because even though I've done 1,000 videos and I've talked about myself quite a bit, like now I'm going even like a level deeper. I don't know, at a certain point, I'm just like all in. Like, it's been various stages of dropping importance, and like letting go and not, hanging on to like, oh God, I don't really want people to know my past and all that kind of stuff. And like, I finally arrived at a place where I'm just like, I don't fucking care anymore at all,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
As long as people are benefiting, and the response has been so overwhelmingly good about the first chapter, I'm like, okay, so I feel like I'm doing the right thing,
Yeah. Makes for a better story that way, I feel, if we're able to be vulnerable in that way, and especially if there's a lot of obstacles that someone overcame.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
People tend to gravitate toward that a lot more.
Yeah, and I think the fact that I am just kind of throwing it out there, and like you'll see even in the next chapter more so, it's going to be really like it's going to be really revealing, and I think it's just going to be very like people are going to be I think there will be a little bit of shell shock, but I think ultimately it's like it will be even more affirmation that it doesn't matter where you've been or what you've come out of, like you can do it, rather than looking back on it and being like, fuck, I hope people don't find that out.
All right, today our guest is Renee Garcia, director of ITI, the International Transurfing Institute, and the author of the new book, A Tale of Practical Reality Transurfing. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's actually been a little while since I've done a podcast. I went on a number of them, like it was quite a few for about a year. And then I was just like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore.
I've watched quite a few of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, oh, I gotta get off. But now I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm promoting my own book. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a new relationship with, being invited on a podcast. So I appreciate the forum for me to plug myself and my book.
Yeah, of course, of course. So let me ask, my first question is, for people who are just coming into this mystical world of something more than what they've known, what is reality transurfing?
Well, that's a really good question. And I have, tailored many, many different responses in the last 7 years that I've been promoting reality transurfing to sort of like fit who's asking me, like if somebody's into, metaphysical kind of quantum mechanic, self-development things like Joe Dispenza or some of the other guys,
Sure.
Frederick Dodson, all those guys that do this sort of stuff. I say it's pretty much just it's a similar sort of approach to self-development, which leans more towards science than anything else. It's it's a spiritual sort of science, as I like to say. And people that don't have any like any knowledge of this world or reality shifting or reality creation, I say it's a psychological technology to help a person structure their thinking in a way where they gain more of a grasp on like the internal reality that the person's living, the external reality outside of them, and then sort of reconcile the two together, which helps to set up an environment which ultimately is like your chances of success really like go up exponentially.
Excellent.
So Yeah, that's kind of, and then there's a whole bunch in between that, right? So,
Yes. Well, there's so many aspects to it, and there's so many different areas to focus on. What would you say is the first step someone could take to begin in the world of reality transurfing?
well, transurfing has a lot to do with taking back control and using your power that most people have become lost to, taking that all back and using it to facilitate what it is that's good for you and your trajectory in your reality. And the first step to that is really acknowledging where you're bleeding energy, where
Mm,
you are engaging with your environment, the other people in your life, or even yourself in a way that's counterproductive to your success. And I think that's probably where the majority of people that come to this modality arrive very quickly with the concept of pendulums. This is a pretty mind-blowing concept that there are energetic entities that are vying for our energy and our attention, yet they don't care about us individually, and will just take until a person is a vessel,
yeah, definitely.
a puppet, a person that has no thoughts of their own or feelings of their own. They're just facilitating that pendulum's intention or that pendulum's goals. And for a lot of people, me included, I know when we first got on the call, you said that you'd lived in Los Angeles for a while. And when I found reality transurfing after I left Los Angeles and started reading about pendulums and realized, oh my God, I was stuck in a massive pendulum, and it overrode all of my own special, unique qualities as an individual. It overrode my own dreams, not the dreams that I was convinced by the pendulum that were, like
Yeah,
it
exactly.
overrode who I truly am as a person, to the extent that I was lost in the matrix, to the extent that I did not know myself any longer. And this resulted in a deep, painful suffering, and that's what led me to leaving, extracting myself from Los Angeles, which a lot of other people have done too, or other massive cities or lifestyles or professions or whatever, but then being able to see it for exactly what it is, once removed. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awakening beyond anything that I've ever, it's next level shit. And once you start to see that stuff and you begin to really apply this knowledge to apply it in a way where you develop a completely different worldview, and you start to view what it is you're entering into, how it's affecting you, how it's changing you from who you actually are as an individual, what it's making you do. It's freaky. You're like, oh my God.
There's so many, I feel like there's so many aspects to what you're talking about, the balancing between the inner energies and the exterior energies. And even some of the natural foodists and some of the health, alternative health proponents talk about the gut energy, the gut brain, or the other sort of parasitic energy suckers that coincide externally and internally. And so we start to see all these different levels that those things are connected. There's a lot to manage and really get to that balance within each person, it seems. But the pendulums are the same way. They're within a building, within a block, within a workplace, within a city, within a country, and it's a matter of which ones we're aware of and how we navigate that.
Yes.
So, what would you say is the overall goal of reality transurfing for someone who's looking at this, potentially diving in to check out this on a deeper level?
So, as we just talked about pendulums, um, the flip side of being a puppet to pendulums and sort of facilitating the wants and desires and goals of pendulums, the flip side to that is that you do you do that all for yourself and what it is you truly want as a person, as an individual. And this helps you to, we call it in the transurfing modality, dial to your soul fraile. So your soul fraile is like this specific little code internally that makes you you as an individual. And pendulums sort of, like I said, override all that stuff, right?
Right.
Override it to the extent where you just lose everything about. And the trippy thing is like most people don't realize how much they've actually lost themselves until they start doing this type of work. But for me, it was just like layers of not only removing myself from the pendulums that were sucking my will to live, really, but like starting to really dial in to that code that makes me me,
Mm.
right? This is
Right.
the things that I want, the things that I desire, the things that are in line with my skill set, my natural talents, my natural abilities as an individual. And we all have this stuff, but most people aren't living it. We do see people that are living it. These are people that are, highly charismatic, or people like, regardless if you love him or hate him, but people like Elon Musk, right? This dude is dialed to the frail of his soul. He is
Right.
living his life tuned in to what he's capable of doing, his abilities, his skill set, and his will to have this higher version of reality allows him an access to that frail in a way where he's like just his power is just exponentially, you know,
Yeah.
growing, all the
Yes.
time. And
Yeah.
kind of trippy when you see stuff like this from a transurfing perspective. You're like, okay, that's somebody that's like really, really, really doing it. So once you, and this has taken me, and I think this is probably why I have found myself to the position in the transurfing community that I have, is I've been working with this so for such an amount of time, and I've really boiled it down to the essence of what it is, why it works, and what you can do to really maximize your results with this modality. But the idea is that when you dial to the frail of your soul, you emit a bunch of stuff and you become very attractive to a bunch of stuff. And your reality starts to respond to this, and you start to respond to your reality differently. And this frequency, not to sound woo woo or anything, but this vibe that you're
Yeah.
putting out corresponds to a sector of reality that's ideal for you. And you don't have to try to do anything. This is the really cool part of reality transurfing. A lot of people come to me and say, oh my God, it's so hard. There's so many steps, heart and mind coordination, intention, pendulums. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I'm like, listen, all you need to learn and all you need to develop is that sense of your soul frail. All the concepts are there to aid you in doing that, to
Mm.
support you. And as you dial to the frail of your soul, you will start to naturally merge with a different variation of reality where everything that you want exists, not what society tells you you should have, not standards put forth by, your culture, your environment, whatever, or your family wants for you, or your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your boss or whatever, but what you want as an individual human with your own,
Yeah,
all of
exactly.
your own stuff. And you go to a version of reality where all of that stuff exists. And I know this sounds like a little bit far-fetched to some people, but as my book is clearly, presenting to the reader, I was born poor white trash. I was raised in a very abusive household with very bottom of the barrel thinking and mentality about money, and people suffering from alcoholism and poverty and all kinds of craziness. And I was on that path for a while until I woke up and took control of the situation. And now not only am I experiencing the reality that is like, it has got everything that I've ever wanted, it's even beyond. It's like actually kind of trippy. Like I wake up some mornings and I'm just like, fuck, can this really be my life? Is this really my life? And it's hard to relay that to people, like, because one, I don't want to feel like I'm bragging all the time, or I'm, really like positioning that I've got it all, but I kind of do.
Right.
And it is a product of me doing this, of
I
me
find that a
transurfing
lot
that
of
reality.
people don't know necessarily that those elements or aspects of the life experience are even possible for them. So they haven't really defined what their dream life might be, perhaps because they don't believe that it's possible, and it just kind of goes around and around like a revolving door. But talk about the difference between a regular, normal, average life track for someone and their highest
Yeah.
life track.
Yes. So usually what happens to us, you know, in our formative years is we begin believing what we're told. Money doesn't grow on trees. If you hit a stroke of luck, somebody's going to say something like, "Oh, the gravy train's going to come to an end at some point. The other shoe's going to drop." All marriages end in divorce.
Right.
Life's a bitch and then you die, and all this kind of stuff. And we're impressionable and we don't know any better. So we take that knowledge as truth, and then we move through our years essentially absorbing any information or evidence that's in line with that way of living. And you're like, yep, life sucks, and then you die. And having money comes hard and all that sort of thinking, and you just adopt it. And one of the cool things about transurfing is, and Vadim Zeland says this in the very beginning of the big book, which I refer to as the Bible now. He says you can have anything you choose, right? And most people don't want, not even, they don't know, but if they're presented with the idea that the only thing that is positioning them from something that they desire as themselves, most people don't want that. They don't want to accept that, right? Oh no, but
Right.
you got to get lucky. Money's for people that are born with a silver spoon in their mouth,
Yeah,
all that sort
exactly.
of thinking. The cool thing is with transurfing is once you develop this connection with the external, and we call it the alternative space, to the extent where you're like, God, I really can see all the different options available to me. Once you set that, like your navigation system to head in that direction, the world opens to you. And your old theory about life and how life works and your position in your life and all that stuff gets upgraded. And when it gets upgraded, then you go about seeing all the stuff that's in line with that upgraded worldview, or
Right.
whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
once this starts to happen, it's just like, it just starts unfolding, it just starts unfolding. As long as you maintain awareness and you follow the concepts, it will continue to unfold. But you got to stay connected, because the programming that most of us have been running on is 20, 30, 40 years and generationally embedded into us, right?
Yeah.
So reading a book like Transurfing and then being like, oh, that's great, I'm going to do that. But then you don't stay connected to it like every single day. You've got to override that old programming. Otherwise, you're just going to fall back. And that's actually why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I noticed results right away with Transurfing. Like you said, that difference between a normal life track for a normal human being and then something much higher and better, I would start to experience as something much higher and better. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm doing it. I'd catch the wave of fortune, or I'd really start seeing reality in this amazing, beautiful, very enlightened kind of way. But then all of a sudden I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, things look like shit again, right? Things like what's going on here? And I
Right.
realized that I was kind of like taking Transurfing for granted. I wasn't keeping that in my thoughts. So I would sort of fall back into that older version of reality. And then finally one day I was like, nah, I got to find a way to make it permanent. And that's essentially why I'm doing what I'm doing, because now I talk about it every day, and it's there's no escaping it for me now.
Well, it's a good thing to be engrossed in, I imagine. It seems like it's very effective. How would you say someone could measure the effectiveness, or how someone could gauge the success of their practice if they were to dive in?
I think just simple things like waking up in the morning and like bounding out of bed, excited for like what's to come
Right.
during the day. Or I have these moments where, in my version of Transurfing instruction, I lean heavily on like self-care and self-love. It's a really big part of um, that frequency stuff and dialing into that specific.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. But like I have a lot of self-care acts. One of my big ones is I do the sauna and cold plunge pretty religiously. And this just gets like my blood just really circulating in my body. It gets my thoughts clear. I feel like it kind of resets everything,
Mm.
circulation, all that kind of stuff. And there will be moments when I get out of the sauna, I get into the cold plunge, I get out and I lay down on the ground and I just kind of like let myself feel like me. And I have these
Mm.
moments where I'm just like, God damn, it's so good, like it's so good. Or taking a bath, just thinking, this is really, really good. Or when I was writing my book, like, God, is this me? Is this my life? So it's kind of like these moments where maybe it's nothing absolutely spectacular, like you're flying on a private jet, or you're, something like crazy over the top. You're like doing something where you're just feeling really, really good. Um, as I like to say, and I don't know if you know my sort of diagram that I draw of the 10 different layers of reality available to a person any given day. It's a good, Vadim Zeland talks about an
Yeah.
infinite number of versions of reality. And that's really fun and stuff if you're like, into the whole like mental masturbation sort of thing. But if you want to do it like a little more practically, like thinking to yourself, okay, there's 10 different versions of reality that are available to me today. The top one is me absolutely doing my best, right? I'm getting all the stuff that I want. I'm feeling lucky. My finances are going good. I'm in a flow state with myself and my reality and the people in my life and all that stuff. And then there's the bottom one, like you can't get out of bed and you want to kill yourself, you hate life, you're focused on news and stuff that's going wrong in the world,
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. And then there's everything in between, right? And I was probably existing like, if the best level is 10 and the worst level is 1, I was probably consistently on like a 3 or a 4 pre-reality transurfing. I was definitely below the midline, but now I'm like probably a 7 or an 8 consistently, a lot of times reaching 10. So
Okay.
my
Yeah.
base level of just what I'm experiencing day to day, how I feel about myself, how I feel about my trajectory, how I feel about the people in my life, my quality of life, my quality of thinking, my health, all of it is just like up quite a few layers,
So
So
before reality transurfing, you're talking the lower end of the spectrum, and now you're near the top and continually improving, basically.
yeah. And that's a really good way. And this is something that I tell people like that are in the community and people that take my courses or people that follow me, as I'm like, listen, draw this shit out and like put it up on your wall, right? And ask yourself in the morning, what level am I at? What level was I at yesterday? Where am I at right now? And it's just so practical and it's so easy. You're like, okay, I'm a 4. So then transurfing helps you to immediately understand why you're a 4 and how to get yourself up at
Right.
least a few. Then when you're up a few, you're like, okay, cool. Wow. I'm like, you can look down, and be like, I'm not there anymore. Right. Okay. So now how do I get myself up even a couple more? Once you start to feel that power, then it's kind of like easy, you
Yeah. So it's
can do it.
increasing your appreciation and your awareness, and kind of those two rotating back and forth to be aware of your reality and yourself, and also be appreciative of the upgrades that have happened and motivated to practically move up to higher levels. Um,
Yeah.
that's
It's
great.
not, the only reason that people view it as being complicated or, you know, complex or hard. There's lots of people that come into the community and they're just like, man, this is really fucking hard. And I'm like, it's not hard. It's just different. And you're fighting the differences,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
You're fighting the differences and you're telling yourself it's hard. If you start telling yourself it's easy, it will be easy. That's the trippy part about it. It's just it's a new operating system for the mind.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of complexity if you look at it that way, but it's just like anything else that you're going to do. It's just a matter of, well, how much am I focused on this one thing and engaged in making it a part of my reality. I'm interested in if you have an opinion or a technique or any sort of insight on how do we go about making someone aware that a better version exists for them? Or is it even part of the duty? What do you think?
Well, it's kind of it's a little bit of a trick question, I think, because that duty to help others, that duty to do the right thing, that duty to care, right? Caring is actually extremely toxic to the individual,
Mm.
to the extent that it can ruin the individual's life. This is the person that classically is concerned with all the events of the world, yet their own life is in shambles,
Right.
right? Jordan Peterson talks about this in his idea of clean your own room,
Yeah.
right? You can't get on Twitter and start talking shit and trying to control external circumstances when your room's a disaster zone.
Right.
focus on yourself first. But the cool thing is, as soon as I stopped caring in conventional ways and go of all the stuff that society has told me I should care about and just started focusing on me and doing what is good for me and living this to the best of my ability, this is what started to reach others.
Interesting.
Right? It's a completely different direction of hitting it. One is outward, okay, what needs fixing, who's fucked up, what's off balance, what,
Yeah, exactly.
and then stopping all of that, turning your gaze inward and being like, okay, what can I fix about myself that's broken? And how can I project that into the world? And as soon as I started doing this, I started captivating the attention of thousands and thousands and thousands of other human beings that are like, oh, look at that.
Right.
Somebody,
Yeah.
somebody that's being effective. Wow. Because that whole like spinning your wheels to try to control external circumstances and people getting involved in politics and all that,
Yeah.
all these movements and all this stuff. You're just feeding the pendulum, right? Those are pendulums. And you're being extremely ineffective. Like that arguing online or screaming and yelling about whatever, nobody's listening to anyone because everybody else is also screaming, right? It's just a bunch of people just screaming.
Yeah, it's all getting lost in the, yeah.
But you can start, I mean, I think one of the big, attractions of for people coming to me, why I'm an attraction of sorts, is because I'll just say, I don't fucking care about any of this stuff. And that's like, whoa, really? You don't? Wow, isn't that weird? Well, don't you feel like you're selfish or, something's wrong with you or, that's different. But this is where I've found I can be effective is when I stop caring in that way and I go about caring deeply for myself in the ways that others need to also care deeply for themselves, the ones that are ready. And then it's just naturally sort of happened. And in that I'm effective, right? In that I'm effective. But again,
right.
It gets back to the soul frail. That's for me specifically. That's me living who I really am and projecting out into the world something that's real. I'm not just a mouthpiece for something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say I was a mouthpiece for Transurfing for a while. But it's to suit the individual,
Well,
right?
you seem like that the fact is you're aware enough to see or to be conscious of what's moving through you, what's coming in or coming through the inside out to, what you're pulsating out to the people who have become attracted and following and all that's paying attention. But being able to be aware of that duration that it's moving through your own consciousness and then being able to look at that and be like, oh, well, I would probably do this a little bit differently, or I might pronounce that a little differently or project that a little bit differently. And then I don't know if that might have been part of the inspiration for the videos or for the book, or I mean, what got you started as a goal of 1,000 videos? And was it the book first, or was it the book after the videos? Or I mean, what brought about the desire to share your knowledge in that way?
Well, the reason that I started the videos is because I don't know if you've heard of the Anomalous Action Challenge.
Oh, this is kind of one for me right now. So
Yeah, exactly. So when you take action that is outside of your normal realm of activities, outside of your comfort zone, you begin to connect with a bunch of different information and insights and all kinds of stuff. And it's in connecting to this other stuff and you doing things differently that puts you on a different layer of reality. This is why most people suffer, and they, unless they change something, they'll just
just keep
bodies,
repeating the same cycle and day and day.
yeah,
and day.
bodies in action will remain, that way. Bodies in action will, so what I did my own challenge. We run it a few times for a number of years. Each year we have different dates that we start it, and we do it kind of collectively, and then people do it on their own. But we were doing one of these collective ones, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a video of myself talking about transurfing, and I was like just horrifically camera shy. I'd never shown my face. I was so shy to talk on camera. I was very introverted, and it was so difficult for me to step out of myself and do this thing. But I did it, and I felt this little even though it was extremely uncomfortable, I felt a little bit of this electricity. And I put it in the Facebook group, and somebody was like, hey, you should upload that to YouTube. And then I uploaded it to YouTube, and then a bunch of people started responding, oh my God, this is so good. Thank you so much. And I was like, fuck, this is cool. I was like, wow, I had no idea it would get this kind of response. So I'm like, okay, well, let me do another one. And then it just started to snowball. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to blow this up with Transurfing TV. And it took me about 2 years, but we just hit the 1,000 video mark. And what came about from doing that is just it's beyond epic. I mean, I only have I don't know, I think less than 20,000 subs, but what has happened as a result of me doing that, the opportunities, the insights, the ways that I could be more effective in doing this. It was just not only a flood of incoming information and new stuff, but really it was a ladder for me to climb up to some of those higher versions of reality.
It wasn't just about the YouTube success. It was about truly upgrading the life track that you're experiencing from, some of my favorites that I follow and listen to the most have a low amount of subs comparatively to the people that are, hundreds of thousands and millions. So it's not always necessarily that it's the most popular ones. The content or the quality of the content, obviously it depends on the individual. But for me, it's some of them are well below 100,000, and it doesn't matter to me. It's the quality of the content.
Yeah, it's a trip when you see it start to materialize. You're like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Looking back on it now, it kind of seems dreamlike almost. And really, and this is, I think, one of kind of the feathers in my cap for just transurfing, my time with transurfing is the channel had just started to gain a little bit of momentum. I think I had a couple thousand followers when COVID hit. And at the very beginning, at the onset of COVID and all the lockdowns and the insanity, I felt myself becoming captivated by it. And I was like, no, wake up, don't look away from the light. I was really, just very aware of something that was coming in my direction that could kind of distract me. So you've seen it if you watch my videos, my laundry room that I film my videos in. I was like, okay, every day I'm going to spend X amount of hours in here filming, and I'm just going to shut all of that noise out. And so many people would message me and be like, how do I detach from this crazy pendulum? Oh my God, I'm suffering. Oh my God, my reality sucks. Oh my God, I'm in an induced transition, which is hitting one of those lower levels of reality. And I'm like, find a creative project, dive into it and don't look back, look away from the light, just create your own world, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, and I did that and I created my own world, and I feel so, so many people talk about how devastating COVID times were, but for me, it was my most successful times. I created a bunch of courses. The courses sold like crazy. I made all the YouTube videos. I traveled the world, which is kind of weird to say, like during COVID times.
Wow.
Last year, I went to Egypt twice. I
Oh
went
my
to
gosh.
Italy during full lockdown in Italy, and I managed to get myself in, and there wasn't a single tourist there. And it was
Wow.
epic. I mean, imagine how few people in the world have got to experience Italy with no tourists. I'm like a freaking unicorn now. And it was awesome, right? It was like so cool. But it was because of this unwillingness to play the game
Mm.
and to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And where it took me was just beyond anything that I could even imagine for myself.
What I did want to ask though was, you created so much. You created these courses. You created 1,000 videos. You've now created a book. Before you started this, would you have considered yourself a creative person?
Um, there were times which if you read the second chapter of the book, you'll see, I lived in downtown Los Angeles for a number of years, and I did kind of get into the art scene. And, I was involved in like some street art and
Okay, cool.
some writing and stuff like that. But it was kind of like me doing something creative that was kind of obvious in my environment. There was a lot of people doing street art in downtown LA
Right.
during those times and all that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit creative. Then I got caught up in some massive pendulums that kind of convinced me that creative, time spent doing creative stuff was a waste. And I became pretty much just focused on like doing my business and that kind of
Right.
thing. And I kind of
Yeah.
gave it up. This level of creativity, writing a book, the 1,000 videos on YouTube, yeah, making the courses, it's pretty mind-blowing to me. It's almost like there's another version of myself that's riding shotgun and knows how to do these things, has done these things, is doing these things, but I'm still kind of like me, just like witnessing myself sort of do this. And I'm in awe a lot of times. I'm like, God damn, this is some high level, like long bursts of extreme creative energy coming out of me, doing some pretty like big stuff. And yeah, I mean, I don't allow the lower version of me to like stop it in any way with my
That's
feet.
great. That's awesome.
That's the
Yeah.
key,
Okay. Yeah.
because that voice will always get in there and be like, you can't do that. Oh,
Right.
that's too hard. Oh, that's going to take you forever. But if you just tell that part of you to like shut the fuck up, you can actually like you can actually do it. It's a trip.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Completely ignore it. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
That's taken some work over the course of time, when life has a tendency to beat people down after, even when good things are happening sometimes. So I think it can be difficult for people to maintain that positive outlook and the motivation that whatever they're working on is going to succeed, or it's going to bear some fruit in some way.
Yeah.
But I mean, what's the alternative? You know,
Exactly. It's like the people that message me and they're like, God, I really like the idea of reality transurfing, but the book's so big and it seems so complex. And I'm like, yeah, what's your alternative though? I mean, you're
right.
just gonna sit on the couch and watch Netflix instead.
Yeah.
Like your time is, your time. It's like when people think of something that they want to do and they're like, yeah, but it's gonna take so much time. I'm like, you don't get it. You're gonna spend that time anyway, right?
Yeah.
that time is being
It's
used
going to
anyway.
elapse one way or another. I know I've had a few people who
Exactly.
have continually recommended, you got to watch Breaking Bad, you got to watch Breaking Bad. And I watched the last episode. I'm looking at that as an investment of 120 hours that I could probably create my own TV series, or I could create a course, or there's a lot of things I could do with that amount of value. You know, it
Oh
is
yeah.
money. Time is money. So at that, then I'm resonating with that energy for 120 hours. Which, anyway, not to
Yes.
judge whatever, but
No, but you've got a point, and this is a very good way of looking at it. When you start to really dissect what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, the time you're spending doing the things that you're doing, and you start to really view that from an energetic perspective of, okay, if I took that, and you did said it perfectly, if I took that 120 hours back for myself, okay, what am I actually getting from watching how many episodes? If I took that energy and time and thought energy and all that stuff back for myself and I applied it to something, I made a statement in my last course, the Anomalous Action Challenge, that most human beings watch, I believe it's 12 years of television in their life, right?
wow.
12 years of television. And I think that's on the low end. So that's enough time to
Wow.
get your bachelor's, get your master's, get a PhD, and write a book about the thing that you.
Yeah, become a expert with credibility, publishing. Yeah, wow. Create an entirely new life track just from that alone.
It's kind of mind blowing, right?
Yeah. The reason why I asked that question initially was because I was putting out a video about, are you creative enough to build or to create your own life, to create your own reality, as opposed to just take what's handed to you based on location or timing.
The
And
family you're built into.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not always about being a creative person. But for people who feel like, oh, I could never do that, I could never paint, I could never draw, I could never write a song, I could never. Where is the ability of creating something within them?
It's not the identity, it's the pendulums, right? These external entities that want your attention and your energy. That is the thing that convinces you that you don't have it, because they don't want you to have it, right? Because they want it, right? They
Yeah,
want to have that time and energy and attention. So, that's why there's programs floating around like, artists don't make any money, you know? Oh, the starving artists, that's a great pendulum,
or
you know.
spiritual people too. That's a whole nother one as well. You can't be
Ex-
spiritual and be abundant. Why would?
exactly. All that kind of stuff is created to keep people away from that frail of their soul, to keep people out of touch with that divinity or the sovereign right that you have, everyone does, to create their reality, right? Everyone has it.
Yeah,
But it's definitely not in the interests of pendulums that we know that, or that we develop, be like, okay, I don't know how I'm a creative person, but I'm just going to start doing something and see where it goes and see what I
yes,
find out. And I'll try, this is kind of where it's at. This is how I've gotten to the position that I'm in now. So it's about really just shifting your perspective and getting in touch with, you are a sovereign creator in your own right. You have powers, you have abilities. If you're a religious person, God wants you to be the highest version of yourself. God does not want, if there is a God, I guarantee God does not want people to be the lowest versions of themselves,
right. Yeah,
or to, you know, live poverty, right? Like, I
yeah,
really don't
exactly.
believe that. Yeah.
They,
So
I completely agree.
stripping all of that crap off, that's kind of like how you sort of lay a foundation where you can start moving in a new direction, and might not come in a year, might not come in 2 years, but it will come.
So tell me, how does someone get involved with your new book? How do they find your new book, or subscribe, or get all
Yeah.
the goodies that are coming
So
up?
yeah, I was going the conventional route of publishing from the onset, but again, getting back to pendulums convincing me that things are done a certain way. I was like, man, I'm not feeling this. And then there's a lot of international transurfers and people that are in parts of the world that, are war torn. We have a lot of transurfers in Yemen and Syria and people in Africa that don't have access to Amazon, right?
Right.
So I was
Okay.
like, I want everyone to be able to access this. I think I'm just going to do a digital book to start. So we have an opt-in page. We're dropping 1 chapter a month. It's a little bit more than a book just because there's a lot of support and resources for the person that opts in. The chapter itself is $9 to opt in, and then there's an add-on, like a bonus thing that we've created, and they're going to change every month. But when you opt in, you get access to a Facebook group where you can ask questions, talk to other people about, the stuff that was talked about in the chapter. There's exercises. We just launched the first one today and people are digging it. There's going to be a Q&A. I'm going to have a Zoom call where I invite everyone to come on and, just have a conversation and talk about
Awesome.
stuff. There's going to be other exercises. There's an audio recording by me. So like I actually get to read and do my own audio for the book. And then each month we're just going to drop a new one. And then at the end of that, I'm going to traditionally publish the book. So there's an actual physical book, but all the people that are like really into it right now can sort of experience it as it's rolling out. So I'll give you the link, and if anybody wants to opt into it, it's entertaining. It's not dry. I'm really just kind of like being myself in the thing, and
Yes.
making
Yeah.
it easy to do rather than me trying to be somebody that I'm not,
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty easy, fun little ride, and a good way to like, reality transurfing steps 1 through 5. The Bible is an amazing book, and I highly recommend anyone that this conversation is resonating with to read that. But it is also 800 pages long, verbose, complex. Vadim Zeland's going on, flights of fancy all over the place. And for me, I loved it. I couldn't get enough. For a lot of people, they're just like, God, it's just too much. It's overkill. So my
Right.
book is like condensed, what you need to know, practical. Start applying it and just get yourself on down the road. If you want to do a combination of all of it, we have the audio books for the Bible and other, resources on the YouTube channel. I would probably recommend people to listen to the Space of Variations, the original audiobook. Did you listen to that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the one with the funky music and all the that is just the coolest thing. I'm still obsessed with it, and I've been listening to it for 7 years.
Yeah.
So I would recommend to listen to that one, and then also follow my chapters for like the practical kind of American take on it rather than the esoteric Russian mystic take on the whole situation.
Yes, it was very poetic, but yes, I really enjoyed your first audio chapter. It was great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Looking
that.
forward to the whole book, definitely. And
Oh my God. Yes. The next one's going to be, talk about lowering my importance levels. The next one's going to be like diving off of a high dive for sure. But I'm doing it. So
yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations on finishing it and getting it out there and all the courses. I'm going to put some links for your book and your courses and your videos as well. And I really appreciate your time and energy and everything, not just for me here today, but what you've put out into the world, which has inspired me quite a bit and led us here to this moment right now. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your support with your purchase of the book. And
well, have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
You
appreciate
too.
it.